Hello, it's Jennifer. Today is Saturday, October 7th. It's been a while since I've done a video. Basically, here in Southern California, it's been very hot, and there hasn't been much to do out in the garden because it's so hot, and basically plants just die, and you watch them die, and there's not much you can do about it. So right now, we're in that transition where we get the really hot Santa Anas before fall comes in. So right now I'm trying to time when to do my fall and winter planting. So I'm going to start today in the hopes that this is the last of the heat spells. So right now, looking at the last of my tomato plants. So these tomatoes were clones from some of the plants I planted this summer. I just wanted to see whether taking the suckers off the other plants and planting them in the ground would give them a head start, especially since these are late season tomatoes. And yes, it does work. So these tomatoes are starting to ripen. So I'll get one final harvest of tomatoes. As you can see, there's some hornworm damage on these plants, but I was unable to find the culprit. So hopefully the worm has eaten his share or her share and is somewhere in their cocoon waiting to become a big beautiful moth. So that's the state of my tomatoes. There's a few other tomato plants around, but for the most part they either fizzled out or they were too diseased and I had to pull them out. This is my Rogue Green Bling plant. I just noticed yesterday that there are beans to harvest, so I'll harvest those later on. And my pepper plants, looks like I need to spray them because there's plants in here. Yeah. And they're doing fine. So the ancho plant has a lot of little anchos on it instead of big ones. I'm not going to complain. And the other bean plants. So this is two of the beds that I'm going to work on today. I'm prepping them for peas and greens like broccoli and also some elephant garlic. This one I'm not done prepping yet, so I need to remove the tomato. I'm going to go ahead and leave the basil plant, but I'll just cut it back. And these are the tomato beds, so for the most part the tomatoes in here have died. I need to clean up this mess here. That's mainly the mouse melon plant. So I'll collect the last of the mouse melons, clean this up, and ready it probably for planting cabbage or something like that in it. Here we have the last of these tomatoes. They're petering out. Oops, sorry. But the tops are still green. And this one has shut out a new little sucker plant, so I have no objections to seeing how far these plants will last into the winter, so I'll let them do their thing. These are the grape plants. And then over here, this is the pear tomato, and it keeps sending out suckers on the side and keeps on trying. But there's a lot of dead tomato up here that I have to remove. And then this is set up also to accept peas. So I'll be planting those later on today. This one I'll probably go ahead and take down. It's got spider webs living on it and it's for the most part dead. I was trying to wait for that tomato to ripen. So maybe I can give it a few days, I'm not sure. But I think it's time to go ahead and take that one and let it ripen in the house. So since the last time I did a video, I've transplanted the banana plants into bigger planters. So the planters range from 7 to 10 gallons. So this one is doing quite well in its new home. It's grown quite a bit since I transplanted it. There's this one over here. It's in a 10-gallon planter. I got ants on me. And this one over here. So they're doing pretty well. I hope they can handle winter just fine. I'll have to figure out something to do with it. If it starts getting frosty overnight, I'll probably just put plastic bags over them or something to try to insulate them or to keep in the warm air from the daytime. So one of the plants I'm planting is some elephant garlic. We actually eat it as a leek because we aren't patient enough to wait for a new elephant garlic bulbioles and the new elephant garlic to form. So this is just some elephant garlic I bought at the grocery store for I think $2. So basically you can just buy elephant garlic from the store instead of someplace like your big box garden store where they will sell you 2 cloves for $2. You can actually get a whole head, which usually has 4 or 5 cloves for $2. So I've planted these in the yard before. They work just fine. And let's just cut this open. And this one has like 5 cloves. So again, this is 5 cloves for $2 as opposed to buying it at the garden store where you get 1 clove for $1. And all you do is just push them into the ground, give them about maybe an inch head space, and you push them into the ground this way with the root side down here pointing down. I like to use a bulb planter like this to make the hole, so that's what I'll be using today. And here I've laid out my garden with some sticks. The idea is to plant the elephant garlic interstitially. I'm not using necessarily the square foot method because I find that that method actually packs too many vegetables and plants in for their own good, and it turns into a mess of mildew, disease, insects, whatnot. So I think it's better to give your plants you can make them closer than it says on the seed packet, but you know, planting tomatoes in a foot-by-foot grid is not reasonable. So anyhow, this garden is going to be planted with broccoli, and so the spaces I've made here are the spaces I'm allowing for each broccoli plant. So I grew broccoli last year, and basically the plants are spread out to about 15-16 inches, so that's how much space I'm allowing for this planter. So I'm pulling out the lemon, excuse me, they're not lemon cucumbers, the mouse melons today. And basically what I've learned about mouse melons is once they get going, they go all over the place. So if I decide to plant these again next year, I'm going to plant them in their own separate container because it's just, they went crazy. They went everywhere. They went up the grate. They went over here. They went over to the next planter. As for the fruits themselves, they taste like a mix between cucumbers and lemons, which is actually quite a refreshing taste. But it's not something that I crave. So, but it would be something cute to serve at a party or a wedding or something like that. So I'm not sure whether I'll grow these again, but if you really like the taste of lemons and cucumbers and you want them together, or you want like a cute little snack or something to put on like a vegetable tray, then yeah, go ahead and grow these. They basically require no care. So it's been a few days since I started this video. I think I started on the 7th. Today is the 10th. So I've been doing a lot of things around the yard, preparing it, and then planting stuff for winter. So this is the end of today, so the temperatures finally came down. Right now we are having some crazy weather where it's in the 40s at night and the 90s in the daytime. So it's a big temperature shift. And I'm wondering how my plants are handling it. So far it looks like most everything is handling it just fine, but I hope this doesn't happen for too many days. So anyhow, this is the bed that I planted the corn in. If you remember, I planted corn in a 3-foot circular grow bag. So I went ahead and recharged the soil with some manure compost, and I've been dosing it with earthworms and keeping it moist since I pulled out the corn. So now that it's cool weather's coming, I'm going to plant some onions. And I got some yellow onions and some red onions from my local big box store. I've never planted them this way before. The onions I grew earlier this year, I grew from starts that actually had green on them. But these look like the little onions that I pulled out of my onion bed over here after I removed the onions that I had grown from seed. So I guess these are the same type of seed onions that my plants already naturally produce. So each bag has 120 of them, which is way more than I need and way more than I can plant. So I hope that these seed onions will stay for some time and I can go ahead and plant them at my convenience as I need onions, sort of succession planting. Anyhow, so let's get started planting. So the first thing I do is lay the onions out in the pattern that I want to plant. In this case, I created a hexagonal grid, and the separation between each onion is about 4 inches. And I went ahead, thought I was going to plant half yellow, half red, but then I thought about how I use onions, and I use far more yellow onions than red. So I shot for about 2/3 yellow and 1/3 red onions. So now that I've got that set out, I will use my handy dandy duck tool to poke the holes into the ground for these. So the package says to poke holes that are 2 to 3 inches deep, and as you can see on here, if I can get to focus. Okay, well, it's not going to focus that well. That there are marks on this tool to guide the depth, so you just poke it into the line, and then what I'll do is I'll poke beside each of the bulbs and then plop them in like so. And cover it up. So I'll do this for the rest of the bed. And here's the bed all planted out. Everything's been tucked under the soil. And we'll see probably in a week or two if these work. Green shoots come up. So the key here is to keep the soil moist so you can break through that hard onion skin that's surrounding them and get their roots activated. And then after that, to get the big onion bulbs, if it works like the onion starts, you just need to keep the soil consistently damp, not wet because then they'll spoil in the ground, but damp to get the onions going nice and big. If those are like the ones that naturally came out of my own garden, then they should look like this in a couple of weeks. So that's how mine look, the little onions coming up. Or coming down. What happened there? Oh, little guy. Let me cover you up. Alright. So that's how it should look. Looks like you need to water this for the evening. This is where I planted my carrots. So I dug up the dirt special here, softened it up, make sure there was no rocks or hard things in it. And then I dumped some more dirt on top because the bed needed to be partially refilled. So that's that. I don't know if these tomatoes and peppers are going to make it through the cold nights. I know that this pepper here is pretty hardy and will do just fine over the winter. But these other ones I'm not familiar with, so I don't know how they're going to take several nights getting into the 30s and 40s. Usually we don't see that kind of weather until December, January, so it's kind of weird to be so cold at night now. But we'll see what happens. Over in these tomato beds, I've planted some peas for the winter. So we'll see how they do in this bed. I don't know how they'll do. I planted peas all around the yard to see where they grow best in the yard. So there's some here, and there's some all the way across the yard over there. And these are probably the last of the Gallia melons I'm going to get this year. These were a great surprise. So when they're ripe, they are about the size of, I don't know, a softball, a little bigger than a softball. And they taste like a very honey sweet cantaloupe. So one of these is big enough for me to have for breakfast. It's a really nice size, really great flavor. Has that cantaloupe flavor without the cantaloupe funk. So I hope that these will mature fast enough before the soil temperature gets too low and the plant shuts down. Anyhow, nice surprise, Gallia melon. I really recommend it. And this is my last go of the red curry squash. I'm not sure whether I'm actually going to get any squash out of these since it is getting cold at night before the plant shut down. But there is a fruit nub over there. So maybe I'll get something. I think this is like the third round. So these, maybe even the fourth. These basically, from seed to like ripe fruit, take maybe about 10-12 weeks. So I was able to get in a lot of rounds of planting these. They get big really fast. The fruit matures pretty fast too. So, and it tastes like pumpkin. We made soup from it. We're going to make pie, fall pies with the ones that we gathered earlier. You just let them stay on the vine as long as possible. Then you take them inside. You wash the skins down with a weak bleach solution to kill all the stuff on the outside. And then you just set it in your pantry or someplace cool, dark, and dry, and let them cure. And my understanding is that if you've done that, they will last up to 6 months in your pantry. So that's that. This one's having a hard time because the ants keep attacking it and putting aphids all over it. But this one over here is doing much better. And over here is where I planted my winter beans. There's some mulch in this container, but the mulch contained live seeds. So I've also got some, I guess, volunteers growing, like that little guy there. I think that's pepper. This tomato. These beans, which, wow, these beans are beautiful. This is the second gen from the beans that failed on the other side of the yard. These beans look so much healthier than their parents. My gosh. Anyhow, I'm very pleased with them. So I decided just to let them stay. But I planted fava beans, some beans to make refried beans, and then the Roma 2 beans. So I'll see whether the Roma 2 do better over here. But these are just plain green beans, and they're doing great. Really, really great. And this is where I planted my daikon radish. So this is I think it's a 17-inch container, maybe bigger, but it's pretty deep. So it should allow me to have some pretty big daikons in here. I only expect to get a couple, and that's all I want because it's only the two of us. And then over here I planted some beets and radishes, and over here peas, and back over there are more peas. So we really like peas, and I hope we get a good harvest this year. And in this bed I planted little gem lettuce. So these are mini romaine heads. They basically have the size for a salad for two, so they're very convenient size. And then over here is my leeks bed. And then coming back over here, I planted some spinach. So hopefully, this area of the yard typically runs cooler than the rest of the yard. So hopefully the spinach won't bolt over here, and it will get adequate sunlight to grow nice and big. I've had limited success with spinach in the past. The first time I planted it, I got some to eat. The second time I planted it, they immediately bolted. So hopefully the cooler nights will accommodate the spinach this time. So now I'll just continue waiting for my green seedlings to get big enough to transplant outdoors. So my broccoli and my cabbage and my cauliflower, which we're going to try this year. I'm going to try some different ways to prepare cauliflower to see if I can get it such my husband and I like it. We had it at a friend's house and she prepared it differently than I have, and it tasted pretty good. So we're going to give it a try. And for now, I'm just going to continue cleaning up the garden, getting rid of dead, dying plants. Probably going to end up cutting back some of the pepper plants, preparing them for winter. I'll wait for this bed of herbs to die, because I know that basil does not like cold, and basil pretty much lasts a year and then it dies. Is that a tomato plant in the middle of my basil? Huh, sure is. Well, surprise, surprise. I wonder how long that's been there without me noticing. And then somewhere in here is my lady praying mantis. She looks very much like a leaf. Her disguise is flawless. Some days I see her, some days I don't. Looks like she's playing hard to see today. I can usually tell her because her legs stick out. And she's not here today. So anyhow, until next time, hopefully not, months and weeks on down the road. But maybe when some of my plants start poking their heads from the dirt, I will do another video.